What kind of crime is so horrific that even decades later, no one can say who did it? And the people once convicted may have been completely innocent. What if the search for justice didn't just fail the victims, but also destroyed the lives of others along the way? Tonight, we're diving into a case that still haunts American true crime history: the yogurt shop murders of 1991. On December 6, 1991, 4 teenage girls were working the closing shift at an I-can't-believe-it's yogurt shop in Austin, Texas. They were young, trusted employees, finishing what should have been an ordinary Friday night. But just after midnight, firefighters were called to a small blaze at the strip mall. What they found inside would shock the city. Inside the burned remains of the shop lay the bodies of all 4 girls. They had been bound, shot, execution style, and the building had been deliberately set on fire to destroy evidence. The victims were Eliza Thomas, Jennifer Harbison, Sarah Harbison, and Amy Ayers. They were between 13 and 17 years old. Austin woke up the next morning to a nightmare. At the time, Austin was considered relatively safe. News reporters described the crime as pure evil and a turning point for the city. Parents questioned whether their children were ever truly safe. Candlelight vigils filled the streets, and pressure on police was immediate and intense. Investigators confirmed the fire was arson. The girls had been forced into a back room, restrained, and shot. Evidence suggested more than one attacker. Control over 4 victims, combined with the fire, pointed toward planning rather than a random act. Police launched one of the largest murder investigations in the city's history. Thousands of tips poured in. Witnesses reported suspicious cars near the scene, but much of the physical evidence had been destroyed by the fire, and forensic science in the early 1990s had limitations. As weeks turned into months, frustration grew. The case slowly went cold. Then, years later, everything changed. In the late 1990s, police arrested several young men, including Michael Scott and Robert Springsteen. Their arrests were based largely on confessions obtained during long interrogations. Prosecutors said the case was finally solved. Headlines announced justice had arrived. But here's the question that still divides people today: what if those confessions weren't real? Defense attorneys argued the statements were coerced, filled with contradictions, and shaped by investigators feeding details during questioning. Civil rights advocates raised alarms, saying this case looked disturbingly similar to other false confession scandals across the country. Despite these warnings, Scott and Springsteen were convicted in 2001 and sentenced to life in prison. Prosecutors said the verdict brought closure, but many observers felt something was deeply wrong. Then DNA testing advanced. When evidence from the crime scene was retested, it failed to link the convicted men to the murders. Courts later ruled that the interrogations violated constitutional standards and that the confessions could not be trusted. In 2008, the convictions were overturned, and the men were released after nearly a decade behind bars. So now the question flipped completely. If they didn't do it, then who did? Media reaction was fierce. News anchors questioned how such a catastrophic failure happened. Editorials accused law enforcement of tunnel vision driven by public pressure. Politicians were forced to address the case as an example of systemic failure in criminal investigations. The yogurt shop murders became a reference point in national debates about false confessions, police interrogation tactics, and the danger of prioritizing closure over truth. Criminal justice reform advocates cited the case when pushing for changes in how young suspects are questioned. For the families of the 4 girls, the pain never faded. Not only were their daughters taken in unimaginable violence, but decades later, they still had no answers. Some family members criticized the investigation. Others focused on preserving the victim's memory. All were left waiting for justice that still hasn't come. Today, more than 30 years later, the yogurt shop murders remain unsolved. The real perpetrators have never been identified. 4 lives were stolen. innocent men may have lost years of freedom. And a city learned that solving a case on paper doesn't always mean finding the truth. So here's the question that lingers, and it's one you have to sit with. Was this case doomed by the crime itself, or by the fear and pressure that followed? And if justice can fail this badly in one of the most scrutinized cases in America, how many others have slipped through the cracks? Because until the real killers are found, the yogurt shop murders remain one of the most haunting, unanswered questions in true crime history. Subscribe to our channel and join us as we continue to explore the world's most chilling, baffling, and unforgettable crimes.